Good morning. My name is Rick Marsh, and I am your professor this semester for Business 260, Business Management, Principles of Management. Uh, who am I? I'm a lawyer and CPA in North Carolina. I'm also a lawyer in South Carolina and Florida, and I did my undergraduate work at Bucknell. I received a JD and an MBA from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and then received my LLM in taxation from Georgetown University. I've taught law school for 14 semesters and also have taught in the accounting program at UNC Charlotte. I live in Newberry. I have a wife, Cindy, who is a healthcare expert and also has an MBA and also a master's in health administration. I have three children, two boys and a girl. All are grown and have their own homes and families, and three grandchildren, two girls and a boy, all under the age of 5. Uh, I've had a career in business. I have worked for a major U.S. bank, now known as Wells Fargo, one of the largest in the country. I have worked for one of the big four CPA firms, now known as Deloitte, which is the largest professional services firm in the world, according to their website. I've had my own business, a law practice, for nearly 30 years. I've made a payroll and made the rent every month for every month of all of those 30 years. And I have uh, also been involved in other businesses and other investments, and of course helped my clients with their businesses. Now, if you were to ask my employees about me teaching a class in business management, they would probably roll their eyes. But the good news is that you're not just going to hear my ideas about business management. You are going to receive in this course the collective wisdom of the entire field and universe of business management in your textbook. And if you have your textbook already, you should have either this edition, which is Fundamentals of Management. This is the 11th edition, or perhaps you might want to have this edition, which is Fundamentals of Management, and this is the 10th edition. Either one of these are fine, even though they come up with a new edition every 2 or 3 years. Between the 2017 and the 2020 editions, it really doesn't make that much difference. They update a few things and they change a few examples and they move the chapters around, but it's basically the same book. And so, whichever one suits your budget better or is more available, go ahead and get it. I'm going to give you the reading assignments with the chapters and page numbers in either of the books, and it really won't make a difference with respect to the course. So either the 10th or the 11th edition is fine. Don't pay too much for the book. Just get it from a reseller or get it if you want to rent it. But don't pay more than $30 or $40 for it. If you do, you're paying too much. Uh, the first chapter in our book uh, is called Managers and Management in the 10th edition, or Managing Today, uh, and that's the first unit. And what you'll see is that the semester is basically 14 weeks. The book has essentially 14 chapters that we are going to study. If you look at the 10th edition, you might be distressed to see that it looks like it has 15 chapters, but don't worry, by the 11th edition, they have compressed it, and so we'll use the same organization so that we cover the same 30 or 40 pages of material each week throughout the semester. Uh, the chapters in the book are basically the units in the course, and so Each unit is a week of the course. So that's basically what's going on here. I hope that wasn't a distraction. I just had some things and having some things pop up on my computer while I'm speaking. I'm speaking from my office in Charlotte, where I run a law practice, and it looks like my email is already starting to blow up at 8 o'clock in the morning. But after we do our introduction, we will look at different aspects of business management and the duties of a manager. And the book is organized in accordance with how uh, academics and people who study and consult about business organize the duties of a manager. And that's what you're going to be studying for this semester. So after the introduction, we then have 2 units on planning. We have 3 units on organizing. We have up to 5 units on controlling, and then, I'm sorry, up to 5 units on leading, and then the final unit on controlling. The book presents many myths about management, and attempts to debunk the reader's preconceived notions about management. And the first of these myths is about the usefulness of studying management, uh, that it's only worthwhile for managers. And of course, this is a lie, a pure canard, a prevarication, as the judge told Roy Hobbs in The Natural. Studying management can help the performance of anyone who works in an organization. And even if that work is as a volunteer or charitable, it's still an organization. So if you are working uh, for a company, if you're working for a nonprofit, you're working in an organization. If you're working for Newberry College, you're working in an organization. And studying management can help you wherever you fit in that organizational chart. Is management an art or a science? Uh, I think that's a great question to start with. It reminds me of similar debates in the world of sports and in life. In baseball, is hitting an art or a science? Consider Shohei Ohtani, who's currently leading the majors in home runs. Or in basketball, is shooting 3-point an art or a science? Consider Sue Bird, who just won her third Olympic gold medal and who has hit about 45% of her 3-point shots. How did Ohtani and Bird get to be so good with such difficult skills? Remember, they are the best in their fields of endeavor, and Shohei Ohtani still fails 70% of the time he goes up to the plate. He only hits about 300. That's 30%. So 70% of the time he fails, even though he's leading the league in one of the hardest things to do, which is to hit a home run. Or Sue Bird, who's one of the best 3-point shooters in history. At her best, she hits 45% of her 3-point shots of those attempts. So she fails over half the time. But they're the best. I have to tell you, I think that's just like management. We're probably going to get things wrong a lot of the time. But if we can improve our performance just 5 or 10%, and if we continue trying to improve, then we have the ability to become the best in our field, just like Ohtani and Bird. Low-tech facility here. Think about this question for a minute. Who was a great leader? Okay, we're talking about management. Management are leaders. That's part of the management responsibility, leading. Think of some of the great leaders. Usually we think of political leaders like presidents and prime ministers, maybe famous generals or other military leaders, or maybe transformational activists like Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. Okay, now think about who was a bad leader. Think of some of those names. Usually we think about people who were famous for failing. I won't come up with any names for you, but We've had plenty of failed politicians, generals, and people who aspired to be agents of social change. What do the great leaders have in common with the bad leaders? Think about that for a while. Usually they have something in common. We'll get back to that question before the chapter is finished. If you think you know what the bad leaders have in common with the good leaders, maybe send me an email and I'll let you know if you're correct. A tougher question is, who is a great manager? Who is a great manager? It might be more difficult to think of obvious examples of greatness. You might think of successful public companies and their leaders who've been in the news a lot, chief executives like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger at Berkshire Hathaway, Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase, maybe Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos, who've not only built and run or ran successful companies, but are organizing ventures to leave planet Earth for outer space. I don't know if these latter three are really good managers or not. They're certainly characters. But I would probably start today, if I was writing a book, by studying them in today's business world. Can you become a better manager by studying? Can you improve your management skills? Or is management so complicated, difficult, and challenging that you're either born a great manager or you're not? If the answer is you're born a great manager, maybe this course will be very short this semester. Uh, but let's go back to hitting a baseball. When you see Shohei Ohtani swing and his front leg kick, I can't help but think of Sadaharu Oh, the great Japanese slugger who hit over 800 home runs, the most in history. And it seems clear to me that Ohtani has adapted O's batting style to generate his incredible speed and power. When I was a kid, Ted Williams wrote a book called The Science of Hitting. Williams believed that you could apply statistical methods to improve your batting average. He famously prepared a graphic of a strike zone filled with baseballs edge to edge, with a different batting average for the pitch location at which the batter hit the ball. When the barrel of the bat crossed the plate, the batter's average went up over 300. And Williams himself was the last Major League Baseball player to hit over 400 back in 1941. That's 80 years ago. At the corners of the strike zone, the batter's average fell off below 250 or even lower, maybe even under 200. Lots of baseball players have improved their discipline at the plate and their average by following Ted Williams' advice and applying his methods to their performance. Or in basketball, think of a great coach. Which position is the equivalent of a manager, right? A basketball coach or baseball manager. Who has been the most successful college basketball coaches? You might think of Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K from Duke, or Roy Williams, who just retired from UNC, or his mentor, Dean Smith. Well, Coach K has won 5 NCAA championships. Bobby Knight, his mentor, won 3, as did Roy Williams. Dean Smith only won 2. But all of them pale in comparison to John Wooden, the legendary coach from UCLA, who won 10 NCAA championships, twice as much as Coach K, in the mid 1960s to the mid 1970s. Between 1964 and 1975, his teams won 10 championships in 12 years. Now, of course, his teams during the heart of those years first had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and later Bill Walton at center on those teams. And some people, criticize Wooden's coaching. They say, well, anybody could have won with those players. Well, to be a great coach or manager and build a great organization, you can't do it all by yourself. Maybe being a great recruiter of talent and helping prepare that talent to compete is enough. Williams himself didn't claim to have any great breakthroughs or tricks as a coach. His famous quote is, we spend over half our time at practice on basic fundamentals. Well, this course's textbook is called The Fundamentals of Management. We're going to spend all our time on basic fundamentals. It's the foundational principles of management, a practice which traces its origins in human history back at least 5,000 years to the Egyptians building the pyramids. This is a survey course, which means it's tremendously wide, but not all that deep. And so, what you're going to do is you're going to learn a lot um, about a few things, but basically, what you're going to learn is a little bit about a lot of things. And hopefully, this will serve as a foundation for your future study if you decide to pursue management as a career. Maybe think about it this way. Suppose you were on one of those shows, one of those, reality shows, and you're asked to build a full scale replica of the Empire State Building, that big New York City landmark. The Empire State Building is on a huge area of land. At its base, it's about 2 acres in the middle of Manhattan. Uh, 200 feet of frontage on Fifth Avenue and about 400 feet back on each side. So that's 80,000 square feet. That's 2 acres roughly. Uh, but if you're and what you're going to do is you're going to build it 100 stories high. Uh, but you're not going to go down 200 or 400 or even 80,000 feet deep in creating the foundation, so it'll support those 100 floors. You might excavate down 30 or 40 feet down to the parking garage, but then you're also going to drill and drive pylons all the way down to the bedrock to support the building. And you're going to need to do that because you're going to support 103 stories on top of it. Well, that's what this course is. It's the foundation underneath your business education. There will be a satisfactory but necessarily superficial coverage of a lot of areas you'll be interested in and that you'll want to study in more depth later on if you continue with your study of management. But there will be certain core principles that you will learn that will support whatever you build on top of this foundation. Even if you go all the way up to the rooftop deck on the 103rd floor in your business career, standing up there on the observation deck, I mean, if you're in the C suite in some huge company, you will be building on the foundation that you learn in this course. You'll get a little bit of quantitative decision making, but you can combine that with later courses focusing just on those quantitative methods in building your knowledge of math and information technology. You'll get a little bit of organizational design, maybe enough to design a successful retail store, after you get out of the class, or a professional practice like a little law firm. But you can continue your study in this area if you desire to create the next Berkshire Hathaway or Amazon, or give Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos a run for his money, or perhaps succeed him as chairman. You can accomplish anything in life if you just put your mind to it. That sounds like a quote from a movie, doesn't it? And it is. It's a tagline from Back to the Future, starring Michael J. Fox, which came out in 1985. The movie takes a strong position on the debate as to whether it's nature or nurture that determines how your life turns out, and whether you can change your future by changing your actions. In the movie, Fox's character, Marty McFly, has been told by the high school vice principal that his whole family are a bunch of losers. No McFly has ever amounted to anything in the entire history of Hill Valley, the principal declares. But Marty travels back in a time machine and convinces his father to stand up to the school bully and publish his science fiction writing, which allows his father to reach his potential and achieve success by the time that Marty returns to the present. The movie's point is that you can change your own future by not being afraid to use your talents and follow your dreams. I think that's an important lesson. But the weakness in the movie is the time machine. No, not because it's a DeLorean. The truth is, you can change your future in the present, right now. You don't have to go back in time You can do it now. I believe that all of us have talents and abilities that lie latent inside of ourselves. They are embedded in our genetic material. Have you ever thought about your ancestors? Maybe watched that Henry Louis Gates Jr. television show. Uh, you know, it seems that nowadays that's a topic that's on everybody's mind, where they came from and who their parents were and where they came from and that sort of thing. Well, you have two parents. Let's start there. Okay? Everybody has that, maybe except in California. That's the joke. You have four grandparents and eight great grandparents, most of whom are probably dead, at least the latter ones. For some of you, you might know your great grandparents. Let's suppose you go back 200 or 300 years. That's about 10 generations back to your eighth great grandparents. Wow, that's a long time ago. Have any of you checked your genealogy and looked back that far? If you did, it would take a really big worksheet because if you go back 10 generations, the number of your ancestors in that generation are 2 to the 10. That's 1,024, which you computer majors would know. But 1,024 eighth great grandparents. That's a lot of people building up your genetic material. Uh, what if you go back another 200 to 300 years, another 10 generations? Well, that's 2 to the 20th. That's over 1 million ancestors. Now, we're just talking about going back, combined 400 to 600 years. I mean, that gets you back basically to the, I don't know, the Renaissance or the late Middle Ages. Uh, that's 1 million people who've made up your genetic material. You have you have their nature in all of you. Okay, some part of their DNA is in you. And maybe a lot of those people were just Joe Schmo, but it probably includes, kings and great sailors and explorers and uh, queens and people who did amazing things, and that's part of you. That's part of you. Now let's look at it another way. Let's go back another 200 to 300 years. Let's go back 30 generations. That's taking 1 million from, right, the 20th generation back to 30th. 2 to the 30 is over 1 billion. If you go back that far, 600 to 900 years, that doesn't even get us back, to the year 1000. Okay, and we know human history goes back much farther than that. You go back 1,000 years and you have 1 billion people as your ancestors in that generation. 1 billion. 1 billion. That's more than all the people on Earth. Think about that the next time you're tempted to stereotype somebody else. He's probably your cousin. So, in any event, a lot of us have the same nature. We have the same genetic material. It goes back, way back, way back, and we know this from science. Uh, and I think that's important. That's important in how we deal with each other too. So if you look at my syllabus, it's just a draft. It doesn't have all the warnings to treat people nicely. And I know this is an online course, and we probably won't interact all that much. But please, just understand when you're talking to somebody else, he or she is probably related to you. And so, just and I think if you doubt me on that, just watch a couple episodes on Netflix of the Henry Louis Gates show from PBS, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Uh, okay, so also back in the 1980s, the same year that Back to the Future was released, and it was in the movie theaters. Wow, remember movie theaters? I read a short book on improving your ability in business that had the following passage, which I can almost quote from memory, but I'm going to read it because this is my first time on camera and I'm a little nervous. But here was the quote I read. Most people do not have the instincts. I'm sorry, let me cut that back a little. Most people who do have the instincts to become great at business, which instincts basically means the nature, will never realize that they do because they don't have the courage or good fortune to discover their potential. Somewhere out there are a few men with more innate talent at golf than Jack Nicklaus, or women with greater ability at tennis than Chris Everett or Martina Navratilova. Now, today you might say, Tiger Woods or, Serena Williams, as far as the sports examples. But these people who have this innate talent will never lift a club or swing a racket, and therefore will never find out how great they could have been. Instead, they'll be content to sit and watch the stars perform on television. Now, isn't that sad? I think one of the saddest things is unfulfilled potential. I think the key to life is to understand that you were given an inheritance of talent, and your job in life is to discover what this talent is and try to multiply it. And by the way, that's what this college, Newberry College, believes also, that you need to find your vocation, your purpose in life, and you find it by looking inside yourself and discovering your unique gifts. And for some of us, we find out early what our talents are because they come out in grade school. And for a lot of us, we don't really find out what we're good at until we get older. But also look at the world outside and figure out how your life can make the world better. You don't have to believe this now. I didn't believe it when I was in college. I learned it in life, and I had to learn it for myself. So what are you going to learn in this course? This isn't Management Jeopardy. I'm not the reincarnation of Alex Trebek. I expect you to read every assignment, which means that over the course of the semester, you'll read the entire textbook. I don't expect you to memorize it, and I won't test you on the facts inside the book. I expect you to think as you read and to learn certain concepts and ideas as you read. Each chapter of the book has a list of objectives for that particular unit, and that's what we'll attempt to teach. And that's what I hope you'll learn, whether I teach it or not. I expect you to keep up in the reading. In order to make sure that you do that, I will circulate electronically short response assignments for each of you to complete, usually just by inserting the appropriate words, phrases, or sentence at each prompt. I expect you to complete and return those assignments promptly. And for most of you, that will be no problem. Cough button. However, if you're having a problem, I'd like to know that as soon as possible. Don't make me find out by missing 2 or 3 response assignments. If you do the assignments, it's easy, free points. If you skip them all, there's no way you can make an A in the course. So don't get behind. Do your work and do it timely. I will assign 4 short papers during the semester corresponding to the 4 major topics around which the book is organized, and then 1 comprehensive longer final paper that's a final exam. This course is online, but I'm available. I live in Newberry. I will keep regular Friday morning office hours on campus, either inside or just outside the Kaufman Dining Hall. I will be the old guy with a cup of coffee or an iced tea, probably reading ahead of you in one of your textbooks. Okay, enough for this introduction. Let's move on to the guts of Unit 1, and we'll do that in the next video. I look forward to meeting all of you, and I'll be back in touch with the next video as soon as I can. Have a great day.